been 4 years since we've been doing our podcast and just posting on social media and just literally being consistent. And that's the biggest key, man. It's like, you know, like results don't show up that fast. Like, I don't know what episode you guys are on or how long you've been doing your podcast, but like, it sucks for a long time, dude. Like, you're like, oh man, we went from 3 listeners to 5. You know, we went from 5 to, you know, and it's like, even when you get to 200, you're like, what the freak, man? Like, this is so hard. But it's like, you just have to stay the course. And if your commitment is like, we're going to post daily on our Instagram and we're going to engage with everybody in the DMs and on the comments, and we're going to, you know, film podcasts at least once a week. Like, you have to stay true to that, and you have to think long-term about it, because those results sometimes don't show up for 12, 13, 14 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, right? So Alex Hormozi's like, dude, I've been doing this for 5 years and I just blew up last year. Everyone like thinks I'm this special person. I knew a trick. I just been doing it for a really long time.
Well, today we had Kale Goodman, Real Business Owners, a super huge opportunity. What were some of the takeaways you had today, Ben?
Well, Kale's an awesome guy. Hearing about some of the struggles he's overcome and how being a problem solver, casting a big vision and painting that picture for his team helped him to go deploy a business plan. I loved how he talked about his partners and how he manages expectations, relationships with them. I think that's something we don't talk about much. And we talked about some of the traits that have got him success and some of the real, you know, struggles that we deal with as well.
Yeah, I think what's so impressive is just the failures. So many things that he's been able to overcome and just keep pushing and pushing through. And I think one message you'll catch at the end is he talks about just having the courage to do things and how powerful that is. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy the show.
This episode is brought to you by Big Storage Ventures. We are now inviting you to team up and partner alongside us. We bring our experience hunting storage deals and maximizing the self-storage asset to provide our partners with cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation, all in one recession-resistant asset. Leverage our sister company, Big Ben's Moving Service, to fill your facility and give you an edge over the competition. Reach out to bigstorageventures@gmail.com or DM Big Storage Ventures on Instagram to team up. Thanks for making the time, man. I officially met you, about a week ago in Kanab at that retreat, dropping bombs on us there. So glad we can make it happen.
Yeah. Me too, man. I always appreciate anytime I get invited to talk on air. So
yeah.
Which is cool. I mean, being someone who's been pretty successful, especially on media, it's like, you know, you wonder when you ask someone like, hey, are they going to be okay? You know?
Yeah, like in my mind, dude, I'm like, we're not that big of a deal, right? So it's like, dude, someone asked me to be on a show, I'm like, let's go, right? Let's do it, man. Like, you know, it's how we got going too, is just getting people on our show and talking and adding value, and eventually, you know,
I think that says something about you too, just the pay it forward attitude. You know, like a lot of people, when they get to a certain point, they start doing more no's, which you have to do to some things, but it's really cool that you were willing to come on, man.
Yeah, of course, man. My pleasure.
And the Real Business Owners, that's a really famous podcast. We'll give another plug, but make sure you look that up. But I wanted to talk first. I mean, one thing that stood out to me as you were kind of telling your story last week at the Mastermind was how you came upon this accounting firm and you're not an accountant.
Yeah. So
maybe rewind a little bit to how did your life lead up to that?
Oh yeah, totally, man. Well, first of all, I was in sales working on a call center when this gentleman came in and he was talking to 1099 sales guys. And I wasn't even 1099, but there were some guys there that did outside sales that were 1099. And so they had this whole company meeting about, you know, making sure you have an LLC, you're setting up to protect yourself, and then all the tax deductions you're available for that, you know, most people don't take advantage of, especially, you know, 1099 agents, they don't have a lot of tax acumen, right? And so I just really gravitated to that. Guys talk to us. And so about 6 months went by, and that call center I was working in, they started like moving stuff to the Philippines, and people just started kind of leaving and dwindling. And so I reached out to him and got a job at his accounting firm. And I go in there. I knew how to sell on the phone. I knew how to talk. I didn't know anything about taxes.
Okay.
And I go in there. So I'm just like reading his scripts, right? And I'm like, okay, well, these are good. People are getting sales. There's like, you know, like top guys were doing like 7 or 10 sales a week of selling business owners this accounting service.
Okay.
So I jump in, I just follow the scripts, right? And I'm just going through and I'm like, there's got to be a better way. This is like boring, right? Like taxes are boring, right? So I started flipping it a little bit. I started being like, well, you know, let's build the pain a little bit. Let's talk about the protection that they can have. And I started just changing the script a little bit of like, hey, you know, because most of the people we're talking to were fairly new in business. Was like, hey, you've invested a lot of money to be in this business. And so do you understand that by setting yourself up properly and taking all these tax deductions, all that money is passed through, which means you can take it against you or your wife or both your income on W-2 and put more money back in your pocket. So even if you fail in business, you're going to be able to put a lot of this money back in your pocket through those tax incentives that you wouldn't have if you didn't have this knowledge. So we want to help you by setting it up, this, that, the other, right? Go through the whole pitch. The guy comes down and he freaking rips me apart, man. He's just like, you can't do this. You got to follow my scripts, you know, kind of that
Really?
just like high ego, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I go back to doing his script. And I went from like quickly, I was the top guy from doing this script. When he found out like a month later, I was like back down to the average guys, right? Like all fighting for 7 to 10 sales. Then he pulls me in and he's like, well, like, let's talk about it. Like, like, why are you saying these things? And so I started telling him, I was like, well, here's the deal, man. Like, I don't need to rewrite your script. I just have my own experience of like tax and accounting issues because I grew up in that. My dad was a contractor. He's a blue collar guy. He ran crews. His business had ups and downs, and he had horrible financial, like, you know, knowledge. And taxes were a burden on this business owner, and so on all business owners, still is to this day. I'm like, everybody needs an accountant if they're in business, but nobody wants an accountant.
Yeah.
But they know they need it. So it's like the easiest thing to sell in the world if we can play on those fears and then those solutions, right? And so I told him the story of my dad. I'm like, look, man, like we literally had, my parents had their home liened, right? So then they couldn't sell it. They had their tax or their accounts levied, right, at the bank accounts. Like one time my dad got this big check from doing a huge apartment building up in Salt Lake City. And he came home, he was so excited, puts his money in the bank, goes to access his money after the weekend to start paying guys and everything. Boom, it's all gone, right? And he was like so excited to get on top of things, right? IRS just come in, took like 50 grand out of his account or whatever it was. And they said he still owed another 60 on top of it. And I just remember my parents, they fought my entire upbringing about money, taxes, IRS, taking everything from them. And so when I told him my story and like why I was so passionate about like changing the script is because I'm like, dude, I obviously want to make a lot of sales, but I want to talk to these business owners on the pain points that they really have.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, they don't want to do this. They want it done for them, but they do want to get the education slowly of what to expect. They want to become self-reliant in the financial aspect of the business. But like, if we're going to sell these people, like your script's boring. Right. And so anyway, he didn't like me for a little bit, but then he ended up loving me because I was a top sales guy there for 3 years before I went off and started a totally different business as a side hustle. And so, but that was kind of like a short story between that upbringing and seeing my parents go through that. Man, it was so challenging in our upbringing, just hearing that fight all the time about money. And so money was a big deal to me all growing up. Is like, man, if like money solves all problems, but I don't want to be a business owner because the IRS can levy my bank accounts, garnish, you know, my wife's paychecks at her job, or, you know,
Right.
they did to my mom. And so, you know, like I just kind of flipped the script a little bit on it. And then it ended up being, everybody started using my script, and that company actually scaled and sold for like over $100 million. And, not because of
Kale.
my scripts, right? But like, I played a small role there, man. I kind of came in and I innovated and just taught them how to talk to business owners with the struggles that they really have, right? Versus like, hey, did you know an LLC can protect you and an S corporation can save you self-employment tax? Like, it's just boring, right?
Yes.
It's like, dude, you can talk about that stuff all day long, or you can talk about the stuff that they're facing and the fears that they have of the IRS and the fears that they have of going broke and not knowing where their money's at all times, and then provide those solutions of like, it's really easy to fix this, man. Hire us, we'll do all this for you.
There's two main things I draw from it, right? You're kind of selling to serve, right? So you have that experience, those soft skills that you can go into a customer. Basically, you talked about the pain points, and it wasn't just, oftentimes salespeople want to find the pain points, but it's not all. We're not just trying to victimize the people we're trying to sell to. It's because we're serving them by taking away their pain.
Yeah.
And so I love it. And I think it's really cool. We met, this is like the main example in my head, but we even met a guy, he owns an engineering company.
Yeah.
And we're like talking to him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm not an engineer. Mm-hmm. And so it opens my eyes to the fact of people that know how to run businesses, people that know how to sell, people that can manage things, can take some of these technical businesses and go do something special with it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Go ahead.
I would want you to finish your thought. I think that there's going to be a few listening that would probably want to hear then how you got, started Easier Accounting or got into the
Sure, yeah.
Easier Accounting.
So for people listening, like I own Easier Accounting. We scaled it to, from zero, bootstrapped it to over $15 million a year in revenue. And, we'll start breaking over $20 million a year here soon. And then we have other companies that do well as well. A couple other companies, some do like $4 or $5 million a year. So it's like, it seems like big numbers depending on where you're at. It seems like really small numbers to me because I've been there for a little while, right? But it's been an amazing journey, man. And if I could say anything about how, like, a guy that's a high school dropout, had a kid at 18 years old, being a teen dad, just working in a call center, could go build a financial firm doing 8 figures. It's like, honestly, I attribute it all to, I'm not even a great salesman. I'm very mediocre. I'm not a great manager. Very mediocre. I'm not a great leader. Very mediocre. But I'm a big thinker. And I sell my vision very well. And so like all my partners there, all my employees there, like they're bought in on my vision, right? And so I'm just a straight up visionary, right? And I will work hard, right? Because that's one thing I did get great from my father growing up is like, dude, I worked on those job sites with him all growing up. I wanted to finish the job. I wanted to like make sure we got paid. I wanted to help support the family. And so I had a great work ethic and I had a big vision. And anything I go into, like I always think bigger. If someone comes to me like, dude, this is like $100 million business, I'm like, no, this is a $500 million business, right? Like that's just how I instantly think. Like if we can get to 100 million, why couldn't we 5 times that, right? But my vision was really like, okay, so here's the thing. When you're selling a vision, and I think this is important for people to understand, because if you're starting a business, you're a visionary, right? And people are like, dude, how do I get it off the ground? Well, you're not going to get it off the ground without other people. Other people need to be able to attach their own vision to your vision, right? So they're only going to do that if it's one of 3 things. Like you have a vision that meets one of those 3 needs or all 3 of those needs, which is my vision is going to make a difference in your life. My vision is going to make a difference in other people's lives. And my vision is going to make an impact in the entire industry, and you could be a part of that, right? And so people want to attach their vision to that. So when people see my vision, it's totally laid out. It's like, dude, we're going to build this firm. And it's not about accounting. My firm is about helping business owners like my dad and many others at different levels understand how their money really works and how we can help them keep more of it to make a difference in their lives. So like our mission statement is make an impact in people's lives and make a difference in our industry, because the accounting industry is broken, right? It's totally broken. And so you got to get really good at selling your vision, whatever it is. Like I just barely had my payment processor out here. Amazing vision. Now we're offering his payment processing services for our company. We've attached our vision to his vision. Same thing with your employees, your referral partners, everything, right? So some people, their vision is like, I literally just want to make a great living and take care of my family. That's okay, right? Like my vision is going to be able to do that for you. So that's going to make a difference in their lives. I have other people on my team like Corey, he's our creative guy. It's like, dude, like my vision is to help people at a massive scale. Right? Like, do you imagine like when we take over people's books and now their spouse doesn't have to do it anymore and they just give them that time back? They're not missing ball games anymore. We're adding more money into their bank account every single month. And so now they can actually like get the things that they want, like the success, or pour back into their business to go to the next level. Like, dude, what we do makes such a big difference in other people's lives. Well, he has one of those souls that's like, I love serving other people. That fulfills him more than him getting rich, right? So like, that vision is like hitting one of those 3 things for him. And then the same thing with my partners. It's like, dude, we're making a difference in the industry, man. Like accountants don't know how to communicate to business owners, and business owners don't know how to communicate to the accountants and CPAs. So at the end of the day, like if we can go in here and build something that's totally different, that services them the way they should be serviced, like accounting firms are going to start copying us. And this thing's going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're all going to be like living very large when we exit our company. And when we exit our company for $500 million, like other accounting firms that are just getting started, like, dude, if those guys can do it, we can do it. What's their game plan? How can we do that, right? And then they're going to copy us, and we want people to copy us. So many business owners are like, dude, they're freaking taking my ideas and they're trying to copy us. Like, dude, that's a good thing. That means you're an innovator and you're actually making a huge ripple effect in the entire world.
Yes.
Right? And so that's the vision that I've been selling my partners, my employees, my referral partners, like my customers even, for years and years and years. And so, like, I'm a mediocre sales guy, kind of. Like, I did become top sales guy at every company I ever worked for. But like, when I look at it, I'm like, damn,
that's not how you see yourself.
Yeah, like I stutter a lot, and I my mouth gets ahead of my thoughts sometimes, and you know what I mean? So I'm like really not that like smooth, silver tongued devil guy. But at the same time, like, dude, when I get passionate about something, I'll freaking sell them on it, right?
But I'm listening to you, and I'm trying to think of why other people that, you said every business owner is a visionary, right? I feel like sometimes people don't have that. They don't let themselves dream or vision cast, right? Because I think a lot of business owners, they want the freedom, but they don't have the vision big enough to build the whole thing out.
Yeah.
Right. So some they might have the dream of being free, but they don't have the vision of how that can take place. And so they stay maybe stuck in a certain role or at a certain level for a really long time. So I see some discrepancies. And I think that's one thing that I see in you that I want everyone to take away and exemplify is, that it doesn't matter how big your dream is if you can't visualize how it's all going to shake out.
And dude, let's be real, like visions update, right? Like there is going to be self-limiting beliefs always, right? Until you hit a level, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I can actually do more. I can go bigger, right? So naturally some people are going to think bigger than other people, but everybody has self-limiting beliefs, right? Yeah. And so really you're never going to get rich alone. You need people around you. So selling the vision is great, but then you got to have a blueprint, man. You know what I mean? And that's where people really screw up, is they have these ideas in their head of what's possible and what they can do, but they're never going to do it. Like me, like I'll roll up my sleeves and I'll just jump on the phone. I'll be the first guy to start selling people even before we have a freaking fulfillment process in place, because I want to know if I can do it. Yeah. Right. And so that's why we're able to get businesses off the ground. But I'm not a great manager. So like, as I have like Trevor, who is my employee on like our Real Business Owners podcast, like I'm like, dude, he's so much better at managing people than me. But so I can sell him on like my vision, he's gonna want to stick around a long time, right? And then obviously he became partner, and it's like, dude, now he has his own vision and I have my own vision, but we still have the big vision together. Like, dude, we're making a difference in people's lives, we're making a difference in the industry, and we're making a difference in our personal lives, right? And so we have like personal different visions, but we have one big vision that we're working together on. Same thing with our media team, same thing with all departments, because you're not going to be great at everything. You're just not. Yeah. So you can't just sell a vision. You got to be willing to jump in and do the work, and you got to be able to allow yourself to let other people be great where they're great that you're not. Yes. And so Trevor's great at managing people, holding people accountable. Devin, our new CEO, he's like great at knowing the metrics of what we really do need to do to scale. John is such a hard worker, and he'll do whatever it takes. If we have to start like right now, we're starting the new payment processing. He's like, dude, I'll jump in and figure it out. Right. Like we have amazing partners. We have amazing employees because they're all bought in on this vision. But like, I can't be the guy that's like, oh, well, like I'm the leader here. Like, dude, I'm not the best leader. So collectively, if I can let Trevor run his department, I can run mine, and JD can run his, and Devin can run his, and Kason can run his. Like, like I can't let my ego get in the way of like thinking like, well, I have to be the man of this thing. I have to be the guy, right? And so the self-limiting beliefs will totally take care of themselves as long as you're willing to step back from the ego, let your people do, like, where they're great, let them be great, believe in them, and they will evolve. And so as evolution happens, it's like, oh my gosh, dude, we're doing $5 million a year. I wonder if we could do 8 figures, right? Because for a while I was like, dude, if we could just do $1 million a year, that'd be huge, right? Yeah. Then it went to 5, and then it went to 10. Now it's going to 100, right? So right now we're like, dude, what's the plan to get to 100? Well, we got to create a blueprint, which we have. And so visionary is super, super valuable. It's where everything starts. And I don't want to ramble on it forever, but I'll give you an example. Have you guys ever read the book Psycho-Cybernetics?
Add it to the list.
Okay, add it to the list. It's really good, right? It's about this guy who was a surgeon, plastic surgeon, and he would have people come in and they want a new nose job, or they want a tummy tuck, whatever, right? And he realized from analyzing these people over all these years, like even when he gave them the perfect nose, they still thought they were ugly, right? And so he just went deep into like the brain and how it works, and he ended up not doing plastic surgery and just became like this brain guru guy, right? And so he figured out from analyzing all these people and doing surgery and finding out like why people have not just the self-limiting beliefs, but like, they can't see themselves the way that they should, and there's lack of confidence. But one of the most valuable parts in the book is when he says, listen, your brain is like a torpedo, okay? And your torpedo, when you make something that's like a really meaningful goal or vision that's like really important to you, your brain is going to try and get you to that goal as soon as possible. Wow. But we get in the way. And just like a torpedo, if something, it's locked in on the target. So just like if something gets in the way on or in the water, it's going to try and go around it, right? And so he's like, we're putting all these things in the way. So we're making it do this, which is taking a lot longer to get to that target and hit it, right? And so basically, when you have a blueprint, you're putting way less obstacles. It doesn't mean there's not going to be obstacles in the way, but you're going to get to that target a lot quicker. And so a good example I've been telling people lately is like, okay, think about my house, man. Like I sold one house and I bought the lot, and I went to that lot for like 2.5 years every day. Like I would drive by it has a beautiful sunset view, and I would just like vision my house on this thing. Right. And then when it came time, like, okay, we got to get permits and we got to get money. And we got to build this thing. It was like, okay, we already had a picture, but we finally designed it with an architect. And then we went and built it stick by stick to make it what it is now. But we had this vision that came to life within 3 years because we had a blueprint, right? But then something else that was really meaningful to me that I think of is when I did work on that call center before I went to work with the tax guy.
Okay.
I remember these guys walking in the call center, and everyone thought they were amazing. Like they were like gods, right? And I was like, what's so great about these guys? It was like Russ Whitney and that Crowther guy that was here in town. Well, they were stage speakers, and they were the guys that would go and produce all the leads for us to be able to get on the phone and sell people. And I was like, well, I wonder if everybody thinks these guys are so great. Like they are. Like I've heard them speak now. I want to be a speaker one day, right? And so I never created a blueprint for that. But I thought it was weird, like 18 years later, it's like my business is getting to certain levels, and people are like asking me like, hey, do you want to sponsor our events? Can you speak? And I'm like,
can you be the keynote speaker for this mastermind? Yeah.
I've always wanted to speak, but I've never done it. It's like super nerve-wracking, right? And so, but it took 18 years of like me creating all these obstacles and pivots and shifts, and for this torpedo to like lead me to where I was like finally standing on a stage and like, preparing my talk and doing all that stuff. And it's like, now I've been on a bunch of stages, and it's like, I'm not that great of a speaker, but like now that I'm getting asked more and more, I'm like, I better get pretty great at this. And I just think it's ironic when I think back all those years ago, like I remember making that imprint in my mind of like, dude, I want to be a speaker one day. And my brain has been trying to get me there this whole entire time. But because I didn't create a blueprint of it, like it took 18 years for it to actually show up, versus my house only took 3 years for me to actually move into it because I had a blueprint. And so that's a huge message for visionaries that want to create something. It's like, sit down and actually make your blueprint, create your steps, your checklist, and design it, man. Like whether it's a vision board or just a step-by-step guide, if you can sit down and be like, what is like my goal right now? Because that will change. It will update once you hit that goal, but you will get there a lot faster if you create that vision out on paper and follow those steps to get there way quicker than just trying to like, man, that'd be great to be a speaker one day, or that'd be great to own a 7-figure business one day or an 8-figure business one day. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just went off on that, dude.
No, it was awesome.
But that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
We need it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love, actually, I'm really glad you went into that, because, sometimes we don't do that. Mm-hmm. And if you don't even set that vision, you don't do it. And it's like, you could have gotten so much faster had you done that.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good example. I don't know, something that came on my mind when you're talking is just this meeting we had with this business, and they're scaling back. Mm-hmm. They just they had branches and they're scaling back. They just don't want to do it. It's like a headache.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have thoughts on that. Like the difference between, these individuals, they have businesses, but it's like, dude, I don't want the stress. I just want to keep it like this.
Well, it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing depending on, if they're not giving up on that business or not, right? If their vision has completely changed, then and they just want to go do something totally different in life, well, those setbacks that they are having right now and them scaling back is probably going to become permanent. But step backs in your business can actually be super, super valuable if there's still like a new long-term vision that requires things to happen. Like, I'll give you an example. We had all these referral partners, okay? We have great referral partners still to this day, but we walked from about $5 million a year in business, okay? Because we were like, holy crap, these guys are going to put us in jail, right? Like, all their customers kept coming over and they were like, well, I don't know, I think I got scammed. Or, they'd say things that the sales guys told them when they, bought their educational product or their business product or their business service or their web development or whatever, right? So anybody that's in B2B can refer business to us, and they make great money and we make great money and the customer gets great service. It's triple win, right?
Yeah.
But these guys were like, they were just like shady sales practice, cash grabbing, and not that they weren't fulfilling on their customers, but they probably didn't care about the experience that much, right? And so what happens is someone gets shut down. And so I realized that there's this whole bucket of business over here where these guys are like, they're scared because someone just got shut down by the FTC, right? And the FTC came in and was like, dude, shady sales practices, you guys aren't doing this right, that right, that right. And let's be real, like anytime a government regulating body comes into any business, they do it all the time to Twitter, Facebook, right?
Yeah.
They're going to find something wrong and they're going to fine you on it or they're going to shut you down over it. So you don't want those people coming and investigating your company, even if you're squeaky clean, because it's time, it's money. So all these guys are scared. And I realized they're all scared because they do the same things as these guys, same sales practices, same type of lead generation, same type of marketing. And it's like deceiving. And so I was like, man, but this is so hard because if I just walk from that business, all my sales guys that are like crushing it, they're putting up, they're making $250,000 a year, their income's going to get cut in half, right? And so finally it got to a point where it was like, I just couldn't turn a blind eye to that. And I was like, look, guys, we're going to have to take a huge step back in business. Otherwise, I think we're going to get lumped into this. And like, it sucks because our sales guys like make a good living off of it. Our accountants make a good living off of it. Like it's been a great thing. We serve these customers, but we keep getting lumped into similar complaints because we're affiliated with them. And so it was like, all right, well, we're going to walk from this business. And it was like half of our revenue.
Wow.
And so we literally walked from it, told them, hey, we don't want to do business with you guys anymore. They were like calling us because we were like the best that they knew in this space for doing accounting service for the customers. It was a huge revenue stream for them. And so it was a strategic step back for us to get our own marketing plans and figure out how can we get more of these A affiliates over here so that we can get back on track to hitting our goal. So just like when you update your vision, like or just like the torpedo example, like, dude, you're still not going to just get a straight line to the target and just get there, squeaky clean. You're always going to have things that come up that become obstacles for that torpedo to go around. But at the end of the day, like, you will still get there a lot quicker by having that blueprint. And sometimes it's going to require strategic step back. So whatever your friends are going through, like, dude, they might just be like, man, I'm trying to time the market, or I'm waiting to see what the feds do with interest rates, or, maybe they're getting strategic about how they can get back on track, and they have to scale down right now in order to survive, to go to the next level when things are more aligned for them to progress again. And so the cool thing about it is you're going to learn a lot in those stages. And then at the same time, it's going to probably, because again, your brain's trying to get you there. And sometimes we don't see things, and our brain does, the subconscious brain. And so like, maybe it's like, just like us, it forced us to create our own marketing campaigns. And it forced us to become more self-reliant and dependent on ourselves for generating attention and leads. It's literally what forced us to start Real Business Owners, right? It's like,
right.
And look what that's turned into. And so it's like, your brain is trying to get you there. And sometimes you do got to take a step back, and there's still going to be obstacles. But at the end of the day, like, sometimes we just don't see the things that are wrong in our current model when it is growing. And so it's like, you know what? We got to scale back. We got to get strategic on how we're going to fix this issue and go forward.
You got to kind of pause and zoom out and retreat to attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk a little bit. You kind of talked about the identity shift that you had, and you talked about how Real Business Owners came about. So tell me how, that process went for you personally, going from, obviously you blew up this accounting firm. It's been amazing. And then now you're changing people's lives not only with the podcast, but with events and speaking and things like that. How did that identity shift happen for you?
So it was kind of cool, man. So after we walked from all this business, right, I'm just like, first, I'm not thinking go create your own marketing campaigns. First, I'm thinking I got to go get more of these super awesome affiliates that run squeaky clean businesses, like people with influence, things like that, right? And so I'm scrolling Facebook. I'm like, you know, because here's the thing, like, people think that it's so unattainable to go after certain people in their industry. Like, for me, I was watching Gary Vee at the time, right? And I was like, man, it's probably super hard to get into that guy, like get close to him or in proximity of him, right? Well, they come out with this Vayner Sports where they're like using sports athletes as like promotional pieces for companies, right? Like, hey, if you want to partner with us, you can get these guys to come like do commercials for you, become brand ambassadors, right? And so I was like, man, I'm going to hit him up. So I hit him up, no reply. Hit him up again, no reply. And then I was telling Trevor about it, and he's like, well, I mean, just keep hitting him up, I guess, right? And I'm like, okay. So I hit him up again. Dude, they replied. They're like, yeah, man, sorry. We've had so many people reach out about this since we launched this opportunity. It's like, it's taking us a while to get back. Thank you for following up. I'm like, awesome, man. This is just sales guy for Gary Vee. And so I'm like, okay, what's the deal? What's the package? We ended up paying him $20,000 to go get like this guy named Derek Morgan from the Tennessee Titans to do a commercial with us.
Okay.
Right. And they're like, I'm like, are we going to fly to New York? Is he going to fly to us? Like, what's the deal? Do we pay for his travel? They're like, he's in Nashville. Why don't you guys go to him? I'm like, okay, cool. So we fly there. I'm like, dude, is Gary going to be there? Is anyone on the team going to be there? Like, nah, we're just going to send a videographer. I'm like, oh, great. It's going to be so hard to get close to these guys.
Yeah.
Well, that sales guy ended up referring me over to AJ, which is Gary Vee's brother, AJ Vaynerchuk.
Okay.
And so I get on the phone. I have a few calls with AJ. We end up kind of hitting it off. And he was like, you know what, dude? Because I start talking to him about, like, how's your business model work? Like, could you guys do marketing for us? Or could you become, like, a referral partner? Like, here's what we do. Here's the value we add to business owners, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, dude, why don't you just come out to Gary's event? It's called Agent 2021. They're going to do it until 2021. And, you know, it's like a 4-year thing he's doing. But it's all around, like, mortgage people and, like, okay, nobody in accounting, nobody in anything, right? But it's business owners. So
yeah.
I grabbed Trevor and my partner, Jeremy. I'm like, dude, let's just fly out there. I just have a gut feeling we need to be there. We meet Gary. We have a great conversation with him. We meet Gary's sister. She ends up hiring us to be her accountant. We meet Gary's mom. We end up like getting her to co-sign on Liz, his sister, becoming our client. Like we set up some entities for her. We do some tax planning for her. It was really cool because she was just getting into the real estate space. And it was like, man, this is freaking awesome, right? We're starting to do this stuff together. And so while we're at that event, Gary's like, look, you guys all know D-Rock, my camera guy. Like, this is the way it's going. And you ever follow Gary Vee stuff?
Yeah.
Like, dude, Gary Vee's like, he's kind of like predicted a lot of cool shit, right? Yeah. And so he's like, all right, you guys need to go home and you need to freaking hire a videographer. And you just need to have him follow you around. And then you need like edit out the best parts, and you need to start putting this much pieces of content out a day. You need to hit Instagram hard. You need to be in people's DMs. So we're doing all this under easier accounting. And it was like, we got finally up to like 10,000 followers on Instagram. We hired a videographer. We don't know shit. We're just like posting the lamest stuff, man. Like I should literally go back and find it, right? But we start getting a little traction. We get up to like 10,000 followers. And then now we're like getting aligned with Andy Frisella because he was speaking at their event. He was one of the reasons I wanted to go out there because I was like, dude, I want to learn about this new entrepreneur community coming out. It's called Arte. We joined it. We joined the highest level by the time they launched it. But Andy's like, start a podcast. Gary's like, hire a camera guy. And we're like, let's just freaking do it. And at this time, it's like, we're making money.
Yeah.
But we're not like crushing it. And so it's like, dude, let's just create this little media department, man. And so we're just trusted these guys to film content and chop it up and put it on social media. And then finally I talked to Trevor. I was like, well, I think we should just do the podcasting. He's like, dude, I don't know. Like, we're going to run out of content. Like, what are we going to say after like 4 weeks or 4 months, right? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. And so we start the podcast, and then Instagram shuts down our account. What? And actually, we didn't start the podcast until right after that. Instagram shuts down the account. And I'm like, dude, we got to start the podcast. Trevor's like, what are we going to do? And then basically Trevor was like, dude, maybe we stop trying to do things under like a brand name like Easier Accounting. Like nobody wants to follow an accountant. Like why don't we talk to business owners? Like why don't we do what Andy's doing? And we're just broad spectrum. Like he owns a supplement company, but all these business owners are buying his supplements, right? So he's like, why don't we call it something like Real Business Owners? And like, or owners and operators. And he spit off like a few names. I'm like, Real Business Owners is good. Those other ones are lame. There's no way Real Business Owners is available, dude. He's like, no, it is. I looked it up. I'm like, did you get it? He's like, no. I'm like, bro, grab that freaking name. So he went and grabbed it on Instagram, Facebook, all the platforms. We got it on, it's an official entity. We got the website domain. Like we bought everything right then and there. So like, this is what we're doing. And then we were all in on it. And so our video guys started posting content there. We started running podcasts, and it's been 4 years now. So it's been 5 years since we flew out to the Gary Vee thing. It's been 4 years since we've been doing our podcast and posting on social media and just literally being consistent. Yeah. And that's the biggest key, man. It's like, you know, like results don't show up that fast. Like, I don't know what episode you guys are on or how long you've been doing your podcast, but like, it sucks for a long time, dude. Like you're like, oh man, we went from 3 listeners to 5. You know, we went from 5 to, you know, and it's like even when you get to 200, you're like, what the freak, man? Like this is so hard. But it's like you just have to stay the course. And if your commitment is like, we're gonna post daily on our Instagram, and we're gonna engage with everybody in the DMs and on the comments, and we're gonna you know, film podcasts at least once a week. Like you have to stay true to that, and you have to think long-term about it, because those results sometimes don't show up for 12, 13, 14 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Right. So Alex Hormozy's like, dude, I've been doing this for 5 years and I just blew up last year. Everyone like thinks I'm this special person. I knew a trick. I just been doing it for a really long time. I was willing to suck.
It's a good example, man. Yeah. And you guys have changed people's lives, just sharing the gospel of entrepreneurship. It's fun to be a part of, and just watch you guys listen to your episodes. And I do want to I want to hear more about your relationship with your partners, and specifically Trevor, right? Mm-hmm. Tell us, how long have you guys known each other, and how, because from an outsider, seeing 2 high octane guys partner together, right? You just imagine all of the give and take that has to take place. And you hinted at it, you know, you stay in your lanes, but tell us about some of the challenges and some of the successes that you have with high octane partners.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're married, right? Yeah. Like, dude, you learn so much from your wife, right? And your wife learns so much from you, but you don't always like each other, right? And so, but here's the thing, man, but you're committed. You're committed to your guys' life that you've, you know, been building towards. Like, I'm sure when you got married, you were like, hey, like, you're whose hand I'm going to be holding when you're 80 years old, right? Business partnerships are not easy, and most of the time they fail, right? Right. Because just like marriages fail, like people break the commitment. And so, look, man, we've made a big dream. We've made a big vision. We're all committed to it. And it's like, you know, when we sell the company, like, you know, who knows how close we'll be, you know, because we've gone through times of like, where like, dude, I don't even like the dude, and times where he doesn't even like me. But we actually have had a lot of fun, a lot of great times together as well. But sometimes it's like you grow in different directions, right? But the most important thing is that you do grow, right? So probably one of the biggest reasons marriages fail and business partnerships fail is because you got this one person in the partnership that's like, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to, you know, do all this personal development. I'm gonna go to events. I'm gonna get in the success space. And you got this other partner that's like, oh, I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna do all these things, right? Like I'm gonna cover home base. Well, this guy's growing, and this guy's really not growing at the same trajectory. And then there's all this space in between you, right? Yeah. And so it's just like a marriage. It's like if you're growing and they're not, it's like all of a sudden you're not attracted to each other anymore. And so the cool thing is like we're great friends, like all the time, even though we've had our like disagreements on maybe pivots in the company and what's best and who we're firing, who we're hiring, all that stuff. It's like at the end of the day, we always come back together because we're committed to that vision, and we both are committed to growing ourselves personally. And that's really the most important thing, man.
And it's impressive to the customer and to the audience that you guys both can cooperate at such a high level like that. Yeah. That's really cool.
People actually talk to us all the time, like, dude, how do you guys always come back together, right? Like,
right.
Like, we don't have to fake anything. It's like we're committed to the same vision, and we're committed to being our best selves, and we're committed to bringing out the best in our employees. We're committed to doing the best for our customers. And so the disagreements don't matter. You get over those things. But if I was like going out and I'm just crushing it bringing all these awesome like business accounts in and going to success seminars and just growing them like the Tony Robbins guru or whatever. And he's at home just like, you know, watching the internet, you know, just barely elevating in life at all. Like there would be such a huge disconnect between us, but we can always come back together because we're committed to like the personal missions and the business missions.
So the commitments there, talk to me about, is there a accountability structure? I mean, do you have detailed contracts that you had to put in place before this started, or it's just kind of more trust and commitment? And
not before it started, but as things evolve and there starts being a lot of money involved. I mean, even with our other business partners, like what if I died? Like they didn't want to be partners with my wife, right? So yeah, man, like we have our operating agreements and we've updated those. We get buy-sell agreements. Like that stuff's in place. But the cool thing about our business partnership, and this is like a really important lesson just for business owners in general, like, dude, let's be real. Sometimes you just don't get those things in place early on. Yeah. And it does become a big problem. But
I think it's important to push on this because I think people really see it and struggle with it, you know, in real life.
Yeah, no, it's true. But at the end of the day, like you got to have a good open line of communication with each other. You've got to be real, but man, like it's so important that you are crushing it in your area. And so when you do go make these agreements and you have that talk, okay, it's time to do this agreement, right? One guy in the partnership might be like, well, I want to replace myself sooner than the other guy, right? And so we actually took this model from like brand makers and we created our own model where it's like, if you don't want to work, cool. But when the company's not profitable, you don't get an owner's check. You're not on salary. So owners in our company that maybe aren't in sales or bringing in business, like Trev and I, like they have a role within the company. They can get fired for that role and just get owner's draws and owner's checks. They don't have to sell shares back to us, and they won't because they know that our company's valuable, right? So what we did is we put a model in place like, hey, if you want to go out and get business, this is what you get paid a commission on what you produce before owner's distributions. This is the role that we can hire for a CFO or whatever role it is, right? And this is what we could get this level of CFO in our company. So that's what we're willing to pay you to show up and do your job every day. If you don't do your job, you're going to get fired. So all that stuff's written into our operating agreements now, like where it's like, dude, this is your role. We can't take away your owner's draws, but we can't take away your job, right? And so when there's multiple partners and you vote to remove somebody, it's like, you're not taking their shares away. You're just taking away their day-to-day income for the role that they're playing there. And so there's a lot of things that go into that. And probably the best advice I can give business owners is like, it's totally worth you guys finding like a mutually respectable attorney to sit down and educate you as you're writing the operating agreement on these things. Like, okay, well, this guy could just give himself a raise so much to where it's like, we don't even get owner's draws because he's just over here like, well, I'm worth this, I'm worth this, I'm worth this. Well, it's like, okay, there's got to be salary caps involved. There's got to be like, you know, commission caps involved. Like I couldn't just go out and be like, oh, I'm taking 40% of this deal, right? Like, no, we have salary caps, you know, like I can make up to 5 to 10% override on an account that I bring, but I can't go just create 20 or 25 or 50. You know what I mean? I can't do that. So all that stuff's got to go into play when you do your operating agreements.
It's very relevant because like early in my career, I was approached with, you know, partnerships and I was very leery about the whole process, right? Almost like you speak about your parents and how they made you kind of scarred from the tax. Like that's how I was with partnerships for a long time, right? But then you grow up, you get the abundance mindset, you start to open your eyes up a little bit. And every single deal we do with Big Storage Ventures, our storage investing, it's like we bring on partners. And it's because we have the lawyers. And I think about us, Callan, like when we first decided we want to work together, we're best friends. And so we had a lot of apprehension and fear about working together just because we want to preserve the relationships. We're like, we got to go to a lawyer. We got to get this all drafted right. And I mean, at least for me, it's been amazing because now I do get to work, you know, not just with Callan, but other people too, but just you get to work with who you want to work with because you have the vision, right? You get the contracts in place. I think it's a big takeaway for people in business. They got to get that down. And not to tangent even further, but my little brother, he's going into business, right? And he just spits off partnerships, you know, because he wants to be a giver and he wants to bring people into business and work together because he has such a big heart and such a big dream. But I'm like, dude, we really have to pin down every single detail. And oh my gosh, he just came back to me. He's like, thanks for bringing that up, because now I have something structured and good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I actually had
thanks for speaking on it.
the first accounting firm I started building before Trevor and all those guys were a part of that. It actually fell apart from a business partnership, just totally imploding. And we even had an operating agreement because we got it up to about $10 million a year, totally imploded, right? It's just greed. Greed gets involved. But you know what? Business partnerships are hard, man. And like you can update operating agreements, you know, like you guys can vote and change things as you go. Like if you did want to change salary caps, stuff like that. That's the cool thing about them. They're totally amenable as long as you get everybody on board.
Sure.
And so, but you got to start with something, and you do got to think through as much as you can, but you're not going to think through everything. And so it's so important to just be able to have that commitment to each other is the most important time. Like I've seen Trevor at low times, man. And, you know, it's like I stepped up and carried him. Right. It's like, I didn't care like that he wasn't really pulling his weight for a minute. He's seen that with me even recently. Right. Cause I went through some things recently, you know, me and my wife working on things, and I'm dealing with my dad. He's probably not got much time left right now. And so like, they've seen me kind of like, you know, step back and not pull as much weight as I could. And so they step up for me. And so it's like, you don't really got to have that conversation until it really gets to a point like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry you went through some things, but, you know, it's been a year now. It's kind of time to get back on the horse, dude. Yeah, that helps hold everybody accountable. And then if it gets ugly, it's like, bro, it's in the operating agreement. If you really want to, like, if you want to make this a legal battle, like, we can. But, like, you know, come on, man. Let's just get back to work.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, the fear, just to speak to it a little bit, is, you know, everything's fine and dandy now. But what I see is as things grow, you know, as like you said, the greed and the ego that can creep in, because like, oh, everything's all fine and dandy now, but when now you're a 15, 20, $100 million company, and all of a sudden everyone starts feeling like they're more, or I mean, I don't know how to prevent that. I don't know how you guys work on that, but I just feel like it's like, how do people keep that humility and sense of like, hey, I'm in a good place where I'm at, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, man. I mean, it's not
it
easy.
happens.
It's
I mean,
not
you've been
meant to
through
be, right?
you've been through a broken one. You know, I didn't know that. So
yeah, I did, man. It was nasty. Found out some of them were embezzling, and it's like, you at the end of the day, like the worst thing is indecision, right? It's like we had decisions to make. Like, are we just gonna freaking shut this thing down, or am I gonna sue you for the embezzling that you've done, or am I just gonna freaking move forward because I know I'm capable and rebuild my own? Yeah. And that was the decision I made. But if you sat there with that indecision for so long, it's just going to get uglier and uglier. And so, you know, there's that weird balance where you've got to, like, as you guys grow and there is little issues that arise and things to work through, it's like, dude, what can we do to just get someone on the same page and make a decision? Because if we sit here with indecision, then you're not doing anything, and things tend to fester and compound. Fester and compounds like anything, right? And so, and when that happens, that's when things really do start blowing up. And so,
that's when you're crippled.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
take your pill. It's from a movie. It's a movie quote. With every time an alarm goes off, I think that's funny. I can't remember. It must be The Office or something. I'm really glad we got into this and talked about it. I don't think we were prepared that, but I do want to go back, because I think you dropped an amazing dime on us with just consistency in the whole social media theme. Because I remember listening to one of your first podcasts. You guys were talking about, I think you said you were like had to invest like $60K a year into growing it. And like, that's just like, it's almost like that's a lot of money to try to get it into. And how do you stick with that? You know, and it's like, I'm impressed by that. Is basically what
I'll tell you what it is, man. Like every business I've ever started, I've had success with to a certain point. They've eventually failed. Right. But the reason that they were all successful to the point of like, it's time to pivot or shut this one down or whatever, it's because when you're building a business, the biggest mistake people make is they think it's their money. And it's not your money, man. Like, so when we started our very first company, it was actually not my vision. It was my partner Jeremy's vision. He was like, wrote this whole course, this whole blueprint on day trading in the foreign currency market when it was new. And so I was like, he sold me on getting into trading. I was like, I don't like that stuff, dude. I don't want to look at charts all day. And he's like, well, like, what if we sell the education? I'm like, that I know how to do. Right. So I literally just found internet leads of people that wanted to make money from home and started pitching our Forex product to him. And then he would call and coach him and go through the curriculum. Right. Yeah. But I lost my job. I got fired from the tax club for having a side hustle. He was like, dude, you're either all in here or you're not. And you got to get off the fence. Maybe you'll thank me one day. And I was like, shit. I like literally cried because these were my bros that I sold with every day. I was the top guy. Like I was one that brought sales guys in. I was like in love with that company. Yeah. So this was just a side hustle, right? And so now I went from making 150 grand a year to nothing. And I was like, okay, well, go all in on this or go get another sales job. And this thing was getting sales. It just wasn't enough to pay us yet. So me and Jeremy, we sat down, we had a talk. And he's like, why do you think all these companies go out of business, especially some of these call centers we've seen in town? And I was like, bro, the owners always just live huge, like high on the hog. Like they're buying Lamborghinis and shit, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay. I was like, here's what we do. We don't touch this bank account. Let's pay each other $500 a week. That doesn't even cover my bills, but I got savings. And Jeremy's like, that doesn't even cover my bills, but I got savings. I'm like, okay. Well, we're going to build up $100,000 in the bank account before we even give ourselves a raise. And that's net. Like, that's after everything. And there's all these challenges in place. Like, we got our merchant account shut down. We had to get a new one. They froze and held money. There's all these challenges with it, right? But we figured out when we got to that point, it was like, okay, cool. We need to get a bigger building so we get more sales guys. And we need to actually, like, invest a little marketing into this, and we need to make our fulfillment better. And so like all that money that we saved of that $100,000 went back into the business, and it was like, we can't really take that raise yet, And so, but it gave us expansion and it gave us cash flow, more cash flow. Then we were able to give ourselves raises, and we just kind of stuck with that model. And so now it's like, hey, if, we want to start a whole media company and do RBO, it's like, dude, we have millions of dollars sitting in the bank account that we don't touch. We don't consider that our money. And it's called your basis. So your basis is basically the cash in your business after taxes that you don't touch it, man. It's like, hey, this is for if we hit hard times, we've got X amount of money in the bank to take care of employees and pivot and go through things and, hire CEOs, things that we need to do. And so that's really the biggest lesson in that, man, is like, you got to be really disciplined on stacking up cash and those reserves and that basis in your bank account so that when you do come across amazing opportunities like, dude, let's start getting on social media and let's hire some camera guys. And because when you do that, when you go and hire a camera guy, it's like, you're not going to sit around twiddle your thumbs all day. It doesn't matter how camera shy you are. You're going to be like, dude, I freaking hired you. Let's just suck for a little bit. Yes. Show me the edits. And then they get better editing. You get better at speaking on the camera. And before you know it, you're like, oh, this is actually getting pretty good, right?
And it's on the calendar, right? Yeah. If it's on the calendar, you're not, we talk about this a little bit. You're not going to let yourself down. But if you have someone else, you're for sure not going to no show, especially if you paid for it, right?
Yeah, it's true, dude. And honestly, there's the cool thing about it too. This is kind of off topic, but like, dude, how many times have you ever made a video and you're like, that sucks, I'm not posting that. Like, we don't even do the posting anymore. So if I do something and it sucks, they just post it anyway. Oh, yeah. That gets you over some weird insecurities and fear of critics real quick. Right. And, we've seen hate, and I don't let it affect me anymore, but some of the shit I would have never posted. They posted, and it got amazing engagement. It got leads. It got DMs. It got all this stuff. And I was like, that was the most basic, dumbest thing I've said in a long time. And it's like working better than all the shit I thought was great, right?
Oh, yeah. There's no method to it of what's going to hit and what's not. Dude. It's just, you want quality, but you also have just volume. Yeah. Like I said this yesterday on our storage investor call. Basically, they're like, tell us what you're doing with social media. I'm like, honestly, guys, like, it's just people seeing me in front of storage units every day. Yeah. Because it's like, I'm trying to say something quality. I'm trying to provide value. I'm trying to do something, but it's just my face jabbering with a backdrop of storage units. Yeah. That's what people need to see every day. And it's more, you want the quality, but you got to have the volume too.
Dude.
And the consistency really, It's like he's posting every day. That's I think one of the huge things that you said. Yeah. For it to work.
And you do run out of content, and you do get writer's blocks. And guess what? Putting just a quote out one day that means something to you is better than nothing. Yeah. So like consistency really is key, man. Like, because you will get people that will be like religiously following your content, and then if you just go ghost on them for a month, a week, whatever, it's like they're gonna find somebody else. Yeah. And then you're gonna lose them. And so people is what makes everything work, man. Like we want people engaged in our stuff, and we want to be engaged in people's stuff. And so consistency is super key.
So you guys have your own mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
right? At what point did you get to that? Like, how big did you grow? And you're like, all right,
Yeah.
we need to do a mastermind, or was it always in the blueprint?
That wasn't, man. And that's the thing is sometimes like you do things and you're like, man, is this a distraction or is this something that's going to be like, you know, part of the formula now?
Yeah. Which pivot?
Yeah.
Tell us what's a good pivot, what's a bad pivot, and how do you know?
I guess you just got to be honest with yourself on if it is a distraction, right? You know, and I've seen that in moments. It's like, dude, people think I'm like an influencer now. So I'm spending so much time trying to be good at like content creation that I'm like not letting everything, you know, I'm not giving it my all over here. Right. And so I've gone through that with this whole real business owners thing.
Oh yeah.
But I stuck with both. Right. And so like there was times where I was like, man, maybe this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. Right. But at the same time, when I got down, I got really honest about it. It's like, well, the best thing I can do to insulate me from failure and my family and this whole business is to have some influence, is to have some, you know, authority in our niche. And
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I've just got to stick with it, right? Because there were times that I felt like it was a distraction, and then times I thought it really helped. And so, I mean, with that, man, I don't know. It's just, you just got to get really honest with yourself after you've done it for a little while. And testing is like the most valuable thing that you can do, you know, like, man, like the podcast, it was like, okay, well, we're only doing one episode a week, so we can always make time for that.
Yeah.
But then when it was like Instagram stories and Instagram posts and Facebook posts and like trying to keep up with all of it, it got to the point where it's like, okay, this is working. The data is telling us this is working, but like we are letting things slip over here. So let's delegate, you know, let's delegate that. But if we were doing that, we set a target of 3 years. We're like, if this thing is like not getting traction after 3 years at all, like then we'll
Pull the plug.
we'll
Pivot.
We'll talk about pulling the plug. Like we'll see what we got to do at that point, but we're gonna do it for at least 3 years. Was our
With
first
your heads
original goal.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And luckily, and I honestly do think it was the name. Like I got to give Trevor credit, dude. Like I think that helped us grow a little bit quicker, dude. Because like
It's a great name.
Like Brody was like, dude, I just literally typed in, you know, like business podcasts and it popped up, and we were fairly new. Like we weren't like ranking super high. But just the word business being in our name, I think it kind of helped us get a little more visibility, you know, and the name kind of attracted people to take a listen. And then since when they listened, the content was pretty good. I think they were like, oh, I want to listen again, you know, so you do got to be good,
Yeah.
you know, and you got to have a good name, but consistency is what's going to matter over a long period of time.
Yeah, it's a great name. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. It's catchy, and just anyone can relate to it.
Yeah. So I was like the guy that was like, yeah, Trev, let's do a podcast. He's like, I don't know. But then he was the guy that was like, we're going to be consistent, and this is the name. And I'm like, dude, heck yeah. Right?
awesome.
So I'm like the guy that pushes him to do shit. And then he's the guy that's like, once he's like, okay, we're doing this, it's like,
Boom.
we're not wavering,
Yeah.
you know?
You push him to the path, and then he'll push you on the path.
Because I'll be honest, like I'm the guy that's like, you know, I said I was going to go to the gym 7 times this week, but it's all right if I skip one, right? You know, and he's like, nope, 7, right? He's like the drill sergeant. So there's a
Yeah.
good contrast between us because I'm like an amazing visionary and I'll push and I'll think bigger. And then once he's on board, he's like holding you accountable.
Yeah, he's good at that. And he's mentioned a lot in his shows, like doing 2 days and stuff. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
It's tough.
his
It's
thing
not
right now,
easy.
For sure. Yeah.
but crazy consistent in habits. I mean, we could speak to habits probably all day, just in how powerful they are, which you kind of did. But you could literally change your life completely if you can just create one little habit.
Yeah. It's true, man. Super true.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you talked about just having that influence so that no matter which direction things go, you have that core group of authority that you
Yeah.
can go anywhere you need to.
Dude, for sure. Like if Trevor did get hit by a bus or he's like, I'm freaking done, or I hate you, I don't want to come to work anymore. It's like, okay, well, at least I know what to do. Like
Yeah.
I have enough authority. Like I could probably make a post right now. I'm like, hey, I'm going to start a new business in this. Who wants to be my first referral
Right.
partner? Right. And they're gonna be like, dude, I want to do business with you.
Yeah.
Like my payment processor that came out right now, dude, he's become a friend of mine over the last 3 years, and he's had business partner issues and stuff like that. And he's always consoled with me on that. And we got close, man. And so when he flew out, his whole goal was to sell me on being his partner on a whole new payments company. And I was like, dude, like, why do you want to be my business partner that bad, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, because I have a little bit of authority, man. Like people see that we've had some success by doing what we do.
Yeah.
And so, and putting it out there to the universe. I would have never known that guy if we didn't have real business owners, if we didn't, because him and I both sponsored an event, like I wouldn't even have that connection if I didn't have some influence out there in our space.
Absolutely.
So people need to get uncomfortable, man. Like, it sucks. Like, people are so afraid of what other people think, and I don't know how much longer we have left on your show.
Yeah.
But that is like a big deal to me, man. Like, I would honestly say all the success I've had in my life has come from courage. Like, I am willing to suck at things. And if you're willing to suck at things 2 or 3 times, you're already better than 95% of other people out there. And so if it's making videos and putting them out on Facebook and just getting uncomfortable and afraid of what people are going to think, do it anyway.
Yes.
Right? If it's anything, man, if it's just starting your first business because you've been a 9-to-5er your whole life, like, freaking try it. Just do it, right? And so it all comes back to courage really to get started.
Social media is a really good, because I think everyone knows that feeling of like being uncomfortable posting frequently.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this on several episodes, just how the person that posts something bad is better, or something crappy or something cringy. Is better than the person that doesn't post at all.
Yeah.
And that goes for the person that's willing to take a shot at using AI in their business, the person that's willing to try this, right?
Yep.
Courage is a big deal, man.
It's the biggest deal. But at the same time, like, if you do get some hate and people do shed light on those insecurities that you had, and it does make you feel bad, like, dude, those aren't your freaking people. They would never be your customer anyway, man.
Yeah.
People that are evolved, that you want to do life with, that you want to do business with, like, they've put themselves out there so many times as well that they don't look at you and judge you. They look at you and they're like, hell yeah, dude, that was a shitty video, but like, I remember being there, and I freaking admire that guy's courage to just freaking keep going, even though he totally bombed, right? Like, evolved people see that. They don't prejudge, they don't hate, they don't tear people down. And so when you're like, for people that want to start putting themselves out there, like, and you are just like, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be willing to suck, like, just know that the people that you actually want access to do life with, to do business with, they're cheering you on. All the haters are not people you're going to want to align with, do business with, do life with anyway.
Yeah, the people that are going to support you, they know what you're going through. They've been there, right?
Yep.
The people that will never try are the haters.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I wonder if there was stats on just the success of those people that don't ever take those steps, and all they want to do is just, you know, talk hate or whatever. But
it's so true, man. I wish there were stats on those. I always talk
Hater stats.
I always tell people. I never answered your question, by the way. So we didn't ever plan on doing a mastermind or coaching. We just kept getting people hitting us up like, hey, can you coach me? Can you coach me? We're like, dude, we're not coaches. Like, we don't even have time for that. And so finally, because me and Trev have been a part of so many masterminds, and we're like, let's just try a mastermind, dude. How much time could it really take? But it does take a lot of time. And we do still have our businesses that we're trying to grow and hit our targets. And so we have a whole team now for the mastermind, and we delegate a lot. And the reason I remember to go back and answer that question is because really, when you are like searching for what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to be successful at? What do I want to put content out there? How can I reach my next level? Is like, dude, so much value has come from being in those masterminds. I don't care if it's your local BNI group, your Toastmasters group, your, Chamber of Commerce, like, get started somewhere, because when you start surrounding yourself with those like abundant thinkers that are all out there trying to do something at any level, it's gonna help you develop some of that courage to be like, dude, all right, let's do this. Because we do compare. People say don't compare. It's a thief of joy, right? And it's like, okay, but we do it, right?
Yeah.
We do compare. So like, maybe we can compare in a healthy way. Like, dude, if that guy did it, I can do it too, right?
Right.
And so it's like, he's not any better than me, because we're not. No one's really better than anybody else. We have different strengths, talents, and things like that. But at the end of the day, like we all have different strengths and talents. No one's really better than anybody. It's just who's willing to actually do it and put themselves out there. And being around that environment, it's like, dude, it gives you that confidence, man. There's people I've looked at these masterminds. I'm like, dude, you are freaking crushing it. And I know I'm way smarter than you. You just have way better speaking ability, or you have way better communication skills, or you have way better
courage in this one area. Yeah, just anything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just being around it, dude. It's a catalyst.
yeah, for sure. No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
That's special, man. I mean, thank you so much for being here. We hope we could go on all day, but maybe just to cap it, like maybe think of a trait or something that you could recommend. You know, you talked about courage, you talked about vision. What's a trait that people could develop or a takeaway you might offer to our audience just that could apply to anyone?
Document your journey. You know, that's one thing. If I look back, I'm not going to say regret, but I wish I would have done, you know, because there's so much that I forgot, you know, and then it hits me sometime later and it's like, man, if I would have documented this, I would have so much more like content and blueprint to help people with. I'd have more structure to, like, if I do want to coach people or I do want to pour into people. And so I saw something not too long ago. I can't even remember where I saw it, but it was like a part of success. Oh, The Wealthy Gardener. You guys ever read that book? Mm-mm. Okay, so
add it to the list.
The Wealthy Gardener, he's like, you know, been this successful gardener, right? And he's like mentored this kid that he was always negative and whatever, and you know, but he like whatever, he kind of just guided him to success. But it talks about in the book how it's like literally in our DNA to pass the baton, right? And so you will reach a point in your business where it's like you have to mentor somebody in some capacity in order for you to feel fulfilled on your life, so that your teachings, your blueprint, part of your success is getting passed on to then go evolve. Like, we are evolutionary beings. And so when we die, do we just want to die without leaving anything behind that's going to make a difference in the world? Yeah. So it's literally hardwired into our DNA that's like a very purposeful thing. And it's a huge part of the fulfillment, especially in our elder years. And so like, it's very, very crucial that you develop some documentation, some journaling. So I do that now. Like, I end my day every single day with 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 wins that I had for the day, and 3 wins that I'm going to plan out for tomorrow. And then I just journal on something big that may have happened. And I do that because it's just going to help ingrain it more, so that I can either pass that on one day or use it right now, as I am involved with like teaching people in masterminds and teaching people in business and trying to be a leader in my organization. And so like, documentation is huge. And the sooner you start it, like, dude, faster you're going to like turn into the person you want to be. So
what a habit, man.
Yeah, that's powerful. I remember when I was journaling, I was really consistent. And it's crazy. I'd look back on my Word doc and it'd be like 500 pages and like hundreds of thousands of words that I'm just like in my mind, just like writing stuff down. I'm like, who could ever like today be like, all right, I want you to tell me how your last 5 years went, like your thoughts, everything that was going on. Like, could you give me 500 pages or whatever? And it's like, no, I mean, if you just did a little bit every day, but I think that's really powerful.
It is. And dude, how old are you, Kellen?
20. I just turned 28.
28, dude. And how many like 21 or 22-year-olds are out there that are like looking up to you guys and they're like, dude, I want to start something like they did. Like, you could already be a published author right now from your documentation and like the things that you've done to get to where you're at, that's going to reach down and help all these people. That's why I wrote a book last year. And then I published it. It was like, oh man, I started documenting in the last few years and it helped me write my book. So I've already created something to where if I die tomorrow, it's like, dude, I've like helped people, and I'm just going to help people I've never even met, you know, by basically putting that stuff on paper and publishing it. Right. And so like, man, that's why it's so important. Like, and plus, like, writing a book, that's going to help you build your authority, and it's going to help you build your influence. And it's like, when you become a #1 bestseller, even if it's just an Amazon published book, which is what mine is, it's like, yeah, I'm not a New York Times bestseller, but I'm a #1, you know,
a bestseller
on Amazon. And it's like, dude, that is meaningful, because a lot of people reach out to me still this day. Dude, I bought your book. It freaking actually helped me a lot.
Wow.
Right. So, dude, like, people are documenting early on that don't even think that they'll write a book. Like, trust me, you will want to write a book. You will want to help other people at some point in your journey. And so if you're documenting, like, you're going to have so much more stuff imprinted in that brain to get out.
Yeah, I need to get back into it. It's been a while.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with getting started again, dude. I fall off the wagon all the time with things that I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. But dude, it's just important you get back on the wagon, right?
Yeah.
And it just makes you talk about passing on the legacy, like how it's in our DNA to pass on the baton, cool, right? Yeah. They talk about, you probably heard this, but in Europe, I think they don't even respect people's wealth until it's been passed on for like 3+ generations.
Yeah.
And they like, if you have money, but you made it yourself, it's like not as respectable as if you have obviously in
Family
America, we respect being self-made, but when it's passed down through generations, they're like, okay, those people live by elevated principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, not necessarily that's great for money, but I think of just like we talk about with faith, multi-generational conversion, or with kindness, like you look at generations of people that are nice, just like anything. I think it's a big deal to pass it on that after you're gone, that's what people remember.
I mean, like, look at Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, dude. Everyone loves his kids. They respect him because he's not created like entitled children. He's created children that are taking that baton. They're like, dude, we're going to take dad's legacy, make it even bigger. Trump hotels, whatever it is, the Trump brand, right? And it's like, dude, they're all actually really cool kids. Like, whether you like the Big Don or not, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, dude, I admire that. Like, I don't want to create entitled children that are just like, man, I got everything handed to me. I'm that billionaire's kid, right? It's like, nah, man, I want to teach my kids how to go out and be like self-reliant, dependent people. Like, if Don Jr. right now was like kicked out of the family, dude, he's got a lot of influence. He's done a lot of amazing things within the organization. He could go be successful wherever he sets his mind to.
That's true.
And so that's just like a weird little analogy about that. I think that's cool. Generational wealth is respectable. And if your commitment is to passing it on, especially to your children, like, dude, you are going to create a legacy, and people respect that for years and years after you're gone, decades, centuries, right? And
they got to know how to keep it.
Yeah. It's really not about making it, dude. It's really about, documenting it, sharing it, passing it on, like using it for good, right? Because money can be an evil thing. It can be a thing where it's like, oh man, it's like just coming to me. So I'm going to get comfortable, complacent. I'm going to hand my kids everything they want. And they're going to become like entitled little shits, which I have experienced with my kids. I'm like, oh my, this isn't good. Like, they don't hear no enough, right? So then you get back on track, right?
Your allowance is getting cut.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes back to those three things, that the vision, what you're so good at, and helping people feel that, because we want to feel that way. And you found a way, like you mentioned, to be able to help you feel that. But it's like everyone wants to have that impact. I heard a stat the other day that was just like inheritances, like the majority of them are all bad. Like if they did a survey on anyone that got an inheritance over 50K, it's has a negative influence on their life or like destroyed a relationship in some way. But that's where it's like, that kind of hits home more when, if this is able to pass down and your kids are living their lives in a certain way. There's someone I really look up to. He's a surgeon in town, but just, does very, very well, makes lots and lots of money, and could give his kids everything they could ever possibly imagine. I'm sure, because he's also like gotten into real estate and an entrepreneur and things like that. But I've always just respected so much that like, he never let them, he never like would buy their clothes. Like, he always made them work. Like, it's even in the will, like they can't touch his money until they turn like 60. That's a weird side note.
My trust too. Yeah.
But
not
it's just
60, but my youngest son has to be at least 30 before
they
he
can
touch his share.
But aside from that, it's like how all his kids turned out, just all like super hard workers, like all like wanting to get after it and do well, instead of just, because you could probably hurt people with money too if you're just giving it away and with your kids. But we're digressing.
It's definitely a tool, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you guys have done a lot of good too. I mean, that's what's cool to see, all the stuff you guys have been into. I mean, we had Justin Prince on, and you guys, been partnering with him on stuff, and it can be a very good thing, and you can make a difference and have an impact. And that's what I love and appreciate about you.
Dude, I actually need to get with Justin to see if he wants to come speak at our next event. And you guys should come out to it too. It's going to be really cool.
Tell everybody about it.
It's in Dallas. So
in Dallas.
Awesome. It's in Dallas.
When?
September 8th, 9th, and 10th. We got a really cool just people from our network coming to it's not a pitch fest. It's a few $100. It's basically $100 a day. It's all about us just creating an experience and growing our community to just continue our mission, because RBO's mission is really to change entrepreneurship for the good, right? Which there's a lot of good in entrepreneurship, but there is a lot of like fake gurus and scams and things out there in the world. Like, dude, whatever imprint we can make in people to like do things with ethics, values, create good culture that elevate people. Like, those are the things that we want to make a difference on with real business owners now that it's its own company, totally separate from other stuff. And so this is our first public event we've had all these private events for the mastermind. This is our first public event. There's only 300 seats, and yeah, it's gonna be really cool, man. It's rbolive.com.
Okay, look up RBO Live, look up Real Business Owners, and your Instagram's Kale Goodman, right? I love that.
Yeah.
Not good, but great.
That's right, dude. Do you know Ryan Stewman?
No.
Okay, Ryan Stewman, he's like a big influencer down in Dallas, actually. And, and we're actually having our event at his event center.
Okay.
And I've known him for years now. And we were in Cabo, and he's like, he's like hangs out with like Sean Whalen and those guys. You know him because he's a Utah guy.
Heard of him, yeah.
Okay. So like we're all there hanging out, and I'm like, man, these freaking Instagram like scammer dudes keep duplicating my personal accounts. Not even real business owners, right? And then they're messaging people trying to sell Forex crap, or some program, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, dude, it's because you have a Kale Goodman. I was like, well, Kale Goodman was taken, dude. And he's like, well, they always wordplay with like those things that aren't very clear. And he's like, so you need to come up with something better. He's like, you should be Kale Goodman. I was like, let's try it. So, and I was just, it's
fun. I like it.
I've had a lot of people make fun of me for it, and a lot of people say it's rad.
No,
I'm like, I don't
own it.
Either way, it's getting attention. So.
Yes, that's is what kind of good or bad, all attention.
My daughter changed hers to Greatman too. My sons
Really?
haven't done it yet. They think it's dumb.
They'll catch on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure. Everyone's been well fed, and hope you guys enjoyed today's show.
Dude, it was a blast. Thank you guys so much for having me.